Hello and welcome to Hikima Council's Makala Podcast channel. Makala, meaning branches, Kasisutu. My name is Amanda Masondo and I'm your host. We hope this podcast finds a way to impact, educate, and inspire your next. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Buzzsprout. Basically everywhere where you find your podcast fix. Every first and last Friday of every month. Hello and welcome to Hikima Council's podcast channel, Makala. My name is Amanda Masondo and I'm your host. I'm just introducing myself for those of you who are logging in for the very first time. If you're listening to me right now, this is either the first or the last Friday of the month. So welcome. This is the fastest growing SMME podcast in the country. Full stop. Drops mic. That's all I have to say. We're bringing you all the great stories from entrepreneurs that are doing amazing work in their various spheres. Those are trailblazers that are actually just Africa's best. The best that Africa has to offer. My guest today, so he more than talks about going green. He actually took it in stride and he said, I'm going to make green products. Sustainability is his middle name. That's what I'm giving him. It's me. I'm giving him that name. My guest today is Tshepo Mangoele. He is the founder and CEO of LinOrganics. Hello, Tshepo.
Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start from the beginning. You were not always this engineer guy, right? This chemical engineer guy. You were someone's son.
Yeah.
Talk us through that journey. Where were you born and raised?
So I was born in a place called Lichtenburg in the northwest. So I spent a few years there, about 5 years in Lichtenburg. And then we moved, I think, around 2000 to Rustenburg. And I spent, I think, most of my life in Rustenburg. So that's where I did my schooling. And yeah, that's until I left Rustenburg in 2013, I think, yeah.
Okay, and then you go to varsity and you study what?
So actually, after grade 12, I did something called exposure year with Anglo-American. Essentially what they do is they give you a bursary, but for a year, you are technically working as something that you'll be studying for. So for example, I was going to be studying for chemical engineering. So they put me in refineries, smelters, where I'm actually training as a chemical engineer. I think that period also is one of the reasons why I'm here, because I got to figure out that if I finish school, I don't think I'm coming back. So I did
I've got a plan, yeah.
Yeah, so I sort of felt what it means to be a chemical engineer at a mining company for that year. And then 2014, I started doing my first year at Wits University. So that's when I did my BSc in chemical engineering. And yeah, that's what I studied. And I just finished with my honors there. I didn't go any further.
Oh, so this is what corporate means when they say work experience. They're talking about you guys that got the work experience. Yeah. Okay.
And it's us.
Corporates, just do it for everyone. You understand? This must be an open book, open door policy. Everybody must get an opportunity to work first before they study. Sounds amazing.
It's amazing. To be honest, I think that journey opened my eyes up to a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think it sort of also formed my ideas around work, what it means to work. And that's mainly the reason why I actually never went back. I had started my company while I was still in university.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Then you discover lignin. Lignin.
Yes.
Gotcha. How do we discover it? How does it come about?
It's a very long journey to getting to lignin. What actually happened was that at the time, Josie City Parks and Zoo, there's a lot of things called alien plants. Most people don't know about these things. They get cut and thrown away to the landfills rather. So what they wanted were solutions in terms of how do we come up with things in terms of solving this problem with the waste plant material. So from there, I started doing a bit of research in my kitchen with the plant material. So I actually, because I couldn't use the labs at Wits, what would happen would be they would own part of the IP.
Okay.
So I had to sort of do a little bit of R&D in my kitchen. So what I started doing is sort of fiber packaging, which is something that's starting to become a thing now. But I had been doing this years ago. But in that journey, I discovered that there's a much more important material that could be used in almost every industry you can think of. And that's in that journey of you doing fiber packaging, I stumbled upon lignin. And then I started doing just a little bit of research in my kitchen until I found a way to extract it in the most green way possible. But that discovery was actually made in my kitchen in an apartment in Midrand. Believe you me, there was no furniture, but you know the saying around Midrand and furniture. So I actually,
I want people in Midrand to see what other children are doing. I'm just saying.
But So I didn't. From that discovery, I then started formulating it into a much more concrete business idea at the time, and then started looking into markets for it. But I think most part of my journey had a lot to do with research and development in the early stages, which is something that most people don't talk about, because it's easier, to be honest, to get a ready-made product and to try to sell that, as opposed to starting from scratch and building something literally from nothing. So about 3-4 years I was just doing research and development on lignin, but also from that there were a lot of other things that came out, different byproducts that came out from that process. But
okay, so besides, is it something, talk us through that specific extract, right? And what it can be used for, and why you decided to go through skincare. Why did you decide that route?
So lignin is actually an interesting material. So it's sort of like the glue that holds a plant material together. So if you look at grass, it's a green color due to the chlorophyll. But if you look at wood, for example, it has this brown color. And that brown color is what makes the tree stand tall and for years, but also not burn. So the idea was to be able to take those capabilities of what lignin does in a plant, and then sort of use that in applications that matter. So, for example, now for skincare and cosmetic applications, we're doing something quite interesting, because lignin is a natural UV blocker. Like I said, it helps the plant not burn, like the tree not burn. So what we're doing now is infusing that UV capabilities into cosmetic products for sunscreen applications. So what we are doing now is boosting the SPF so that we can make sunscreens for people of a darker toned skin.
Thank you very much.
Because what we've noticed is that the current sunscreens have either one of two problems. The ones that look very oily and don't leave a cast, they've been linked to causing cancer because of the UV filters in there. But now the other ones that are mineral based, they leave this white cast, and for people with darker toned skin, it's a nightmare. So we're working on solving that with lignin, because it has also antibacterial properties and antioxidant properties. And we recently found that in makeup, it has this mattifying effect. So we'll also then be putting that into cosmetic products that are relating to like concealers, foundations, and stuff.
That's amazing. The thing is, I'm doing a lot of work for all my makeup lovers, for all my organic queens. I'm doing it for you. Please. Okay, so you tap into entrepreneurship now. Do you think it's something that you've always wanted to do, or did you just stumble on it?
Oftentimes I hear people talking about stories about how they were selling things when they were young and wanted to be entrepreneurs.
That's not your story.
That's not me. To be honest, yes, I did sell a few things with my uncle, but I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I actually played football for about 15 years. I was convinced I would be a football player.
So
when that didn't work, I was obviously going to do something in the science field. And in my head, I was going to be a chemical engineer before I went to Anglo. So it sort of happened that while studying, I decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But also, it sort of happened at a very peculiar time, because at the time I was a slam poet. I've done a lot.
Lived a full life.
I have lived. So I was a slam poet, but at the time I was sort of at crossroads, because I was sort of trying to choose a path between art or entrepreneurship, because I believe that the two sometimes cease to coexist. So I wrote an entire poem, 2-page poem, reasoning why I should be an entrepreneur.
Art.
So that from that point, I then decided, you know what, I'm going to stop writing and pursue entrepreneurship full time. And that was about 2017. And ever since, I had been just fully focused on entrepreneurship. But it's not something that I would say when I was young, walking down the dusty streets of Rustenburg.
You were born to be.
I don't think people that genuinely make products from scratch, they never make them so that they become rich or become entrepreneurs. I think it's a passion thing, because I'm truly passionate about creation. Like I said, I used to do poetry, I do abstract art, so I use science now as a form of expression. Mm-hmm. So even the processes that I develop or come up with, it's all from an expression perspective. It's not because I'm trying to be this multi-billionaire or whatever. It's just that I believe in creation, but also I believe in creating meaningful things, so that generations to come can at least benefit from that. That's my whole existence, essentially.
Love it. Okay, but when you think about it now, right, in hindsight, what did you think entrepreneur was then versus what you know it to be now?
Because of where I grew up, I'll be honest, for me, entrepreneurship was always someone going to buy things like sweets. I had the idea of like what a tuck shop is in terms of what entrepreneurship is. I always correlated the two.
Got you.
I was also never exposed to people that built things and sold things on that magnitude. So I've always seen it as sort of like a transactional thing where people are buying things and selling them. It only started switching when I was in university. Started being more exposed to like different people, different entrepreneurs also. Yeah. Just learning a little bit more about what it actually means. But even today, I think most people who are entrepreneurs don't really fully understand what it means. So I'm also still in the journey of fully understanding what it means to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because one could put it down to just making things and selling them. I mean, create value, sell it. It makes sense. But if you dig deeper into that, I mean, it's a world of also fulfilling your own purpose. Because it's tough. To be honest, I mean, being an entrepreneur is probably the hardest self-inflicted.
Self-inflicted is the word.
And if you're not really connected to it on a deeper level in terms of like what it is that you're doing, you will at some point quit because it's that hard but amazing at the same time.
Hard but amazing. Okay, guys. I mean, I don't know if you guys are selling us. Yes, you guys, your entrepreneurships, you're keeping secrets from us. You're telling us it's romantic, it's gorgeous, but also.
Yeah, I think the truth is it's beautiful when the days are sunny, when it's great, when there's money. But the downside is also very, very hard.
Yeah.
And I think most people aren't able to come out of the downside. But it's amazing, to be honest, for me, because I feel like closely linked to my purpose in life of creation.
Yeah.
I'm able to go down the darkest places, but also be able to emerge, because I believe this is something I'm kind of meant to be doing, And I just love creating things and selling them.
Amazing. Okay. LinOrganics. Talk us through that your product offering and how you structured everything to come together. How did you decide on the specific products that you have? Talk us through the various products that you have, and then how you came about the whole structure.
Okay, so LignOrganics is probably the first company globally that will be achieving something called total biomass valorization. Excuse my nerdiness for 1 minute, please. I'll try to. But so essentially what we are doing is it's about being able to use every part of the plant material. Yeah. So the plant material has different components, the lignin, the cellulose, hemicellulose, and the extractives. What we are doing is trying to be the first company ever to use every part of the plant material without any waste. So LignOrganics is essentially building a biorefinery that if you put in, for example, we put in macadamia nut shells, what comes out is lignin, is hemicellulose, which are the sugars from the nut shells. We also have tartaric acid. So we've actually got a patent for the dual extraction of tartaric acid and lignin, which is something that hasn't been done. We also have a soap that comes out, which could be used for making all sorts of products that are soap-based. We also have a high-purity carbon that could be used in battery making, but also air purification, water cleaning, water purification also. So that's LignOrganics as the main company. So we are working on building a biorefinery all together, we have about 19 different biochemicals and biomaterials that come out.
Yeah.
But something that's a bit more in terms of outward facing in terms of our products is called Orfil. So we have an in-house brand called Orfil. Essentially with Orfil, we take the soap that comes out and we formulate skincare and cosmetic products. We saw that it's difficult to sell green products that no one knows about in South Africa and Africa.
Yeah.
The likes of lignin. If I'm talking about lignin, fufural, 5-HMF, it's like it's
people
all,
are like, Tshepo.
what are we doing
in
here?
English? Yeah.
You know, so what we've decided is create a brand that is in the skincare and cosmetics industry, but with that brand, introduce people slowly to these new different products. So with Orfil now, like I said, we'll be launching a sunscreen with Orfil, with lignin infused in the sunscreen, so that people can learn a little bit about lignin. And then the next thing we'll be doing is people see AHA, but most people don't really know what that means. It's like these alpha hydroxy acids. One of them is tartaric acid that we produce.
Okay.
So we'll then be producing serums that have our tartaric acid in them. You know, so essentially, Orfil is like the little vehicle that we use to showcase all the other stuff that we produce with LignOrganic.
Okay.
But yeah, with Orfil, we now have a 100% natural micellar water. It's amazing for removing makeup.
I know it. I know it.
But also, people have been using it to sort of prime the skin before makeup applications. It's also amazing for that. We also have a makeup brush cleanser. Cleans your brushes, conditions them, but also it keeps the integrity of the fribbles of the brush, which is great. And we have a natural hand wash as well. The hand wash is also just a regular hand wash, but it's made from soap that's made from macadamia nutshell. I mean, it's amazing.
All right, sure, that sounds amazing, guys. You see, natural, everything's natural. Okay. Let's talk about doing business in South Africa, right?
Yeah.
The good and the bad. What would you say has been your experience so far?
It's been, there's ups and downs of doing business in South Africa. I'll start with the good. I think there's a lot of opportunity to create and come up with novel stuff in South Africa versus other African countries.
Gotcha.
I think our innovation ecosystem is a little bit much more well built. So you are able to go from thinking of a product and being able to go through the different stages R&D up until you go commercial. So there are systems in there in South Africa like the Innovation Hub, the Technology Innovation Agency. The Department of Science and Innovation also has some programs that they run. So I've been able to benefit from those a lot.
Okay.
So for that, I'm really grateful. I mean, it's helped a lot in terms of getting the company where it is now. But I think also what's great is that we have the brains in South Africa. Most people don't realize this, but South Africans are possibly one of the smartest people also in the world. So we have the brains and the ingenuity to come up with things. So I've been able to have the pleasure of meeting some of the greatest brains in South Africa from a scientific perspective. So these opportunities are rare, but at least I've had the opportunity to get those.
Yeah.
But for someone who wasn't in my position, I mean, because I also am aware of the privilege that I had of being at Wits. If someone was from a different place, it would be very hard to attain these things.
It gives you the edge. But what? Why are you guys promoting yourselves? Okay, go.
So that's the good for me, I believe. And there's also, depending on where you look, there is enough funding to develop products.
Yeah.
It's just not easy to come by, but it is there.
Okay.
I think the bad is that we have good policies, but implementation is still a long way.
Yeah.
Something as simple as carbon credits. I think if we were able to do well with carbon tax and carbon credits in South Africa, it would also help bring more sustainable products and goods into the market.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of beautiful policies that we have around plastics and what have you. So it's just the implementation that's lacking a little bit. Market to access, I think most of your guests have talked a little bit about this. It's a big one. I think it's one of the things that you only think about once you're faced with it, especially if you are building like technology. Oftentimes what we do as tech entrepreneurs and people in making and manufacturing space is that we focus so much in the beginning on the product that now you've made the product, where does it go becomes the problem, you know? So I think the creation of platforms that allow for market access will be something that would be great.
Yeah.
Without also ripping off the entrepreneurs, because there are platforms like that, but I mean, they're taking commission fees of north of 30%, and it's just like, but now...
That's not the whole thing, yeah.
You know, so I think market access is the biggest thing. I think it's one of those things that needs to be sort of figured out. I've tried working on things with different entrepreneurs to say, you know what, if we build a market amongst us, we are able to sort of circumvent some of these problems.
Yeah.
Something as simple as, if I send you a letter of intent saying, you producing bricks, once you produce 1 ton of bricks, I will buy them from you, and I'll use them to build a facility or a factory somewhere. That letter of intent, you can now use that and go look for funding.
Yeah.
But now, I don't know if it's a psychology of being an entrepreneur in South Africa, but there's not a lot of people that are looking at ways to work together as entrepreneurs. I think, I'm not sure if it's a psychological thing, if it's other things that are of a political nature, but we struggle a lot as entrepreneurs working together.
Collaboration is still lagging behind.
It is, yeah. But yeah, I think for me those are the 2 biggest things. I think if you can get good policies in place and get market access out there, that would be a good thing.
Okay, Tshepo, let's continue with talking about access to market, right? I wanted to ask you about, are you finding that it's easier then to sell the product outside of the country, on the continent or globally? Or are you finding that generally the barriers to entry are similar across the continent?
I've gone to a few places around Europe and some parts of Africa, trying to see if there's a possibility in terms of putting the products in the market. I think the barriers to entry are kind of similar. But some countries are much more open to doing business. I mean, a place like Kenya, the people there are really open to doing business as opposed to here in South Africa. But I think on a fundamental basis, the barriers to entry are kind of the same. Yeah. But it's just receptivity from the people is different.
Okay.
So in UK, for example, the products that we've shared with people like them from a eco-friendly sustainability perspective. But in Africa, that's not really a huge selling point at the moment. We're still lagging a little bit behind in terms of sustainability and what have you. So I think for us, what we wanted to do first is establish all the systems in South Africa, especially from a logistics standpoint. Yeah. Because I'm not really one who wants to hurry into growth. I mean, I see people growing very quick, but I also know the downsides of that. So I'm very cautious, but also calculated in terms of our growth, because I know that if we can tackle the issues that we're facing in South Africa, getting into Zimbabwe, Kenya, it becomes so much simpler. Because we would have figured out the nitty-gritties of being able to get into retail and the likes. So we're not out yet. Yeah. We're just working on systems at the moment.
Okay. When we talk about, I guess, navigating retailers, a lot of our entrepreneurs have spoken about how no one talks about that loophole, right? All the difficulties that the retailers have that you don't know about as an entrepreneur. You just want to get your stuff on the shelves. Yeah. And all the bottlenecks that take for you to get there. How have you guys navigated that?
So I know of the challenges with retail. It's one of the reasons why for us we're targeting one specific retailer. Okay. Because the issue is you're always trying so hard to get in. But once you get in, you don't know all the issues that come with having your product on the shelf. So we are currently looking at one specific retailer, trying very hard to have all our ducks in a row so that we can get in there. But at the moment, we are really harnessing the power of e-commerce, trying to see how best we can push product through that. Yeah. And then once we can get into that one retailer, I think from a retail perspective, I think we'll be okay because they are much more fairer in terms of the commissions, but also the other stuff that comes with the MOQs. So, yeah, we haven't done a lot of work in trying to get into retail. Because also some of the retailers will say we need a range of about 6 products. And then it's like,
Gotcha.
Yeah, like I said also, our growth is very steady.
You're not in a rush.
We have all the time.
Easy does it. Okay. And then maybe talk us through some of the things that, even if it's from inception, right, from just starting the business, what are some of the things that you think really shouldn't have been a struggle, or you felt like the starting point was relatively easy, more than the running it is harder than the starting?
For me, because I have a sort of a scientist engineering brain.
Yeah.
The easier things were making the product.
Okay.
Right, the makings were easy. Okay. Yes, it took a couple of years, but it's easy to make the products. I think the manufacturing, people, these are the things that are a bit harder when it comes to running the business, that I didn't think about at the time, you know. But also things like as simple as taxes. People don't talk a lot about things like quota, which is super important if you're in the manufacturing space. But you go through all of these innovation hubs and incubators and stuff, but the essence of running a business, oftentimes people don't talk about that. And because I'm coming from an engineering background also, I had to learn these things on the job. So for me, making the product's easy part. I can make a product any day. But now when you have to then take that into market, that's especially the other business functions that no one talks about. Finance.
Yeah. Finance, yes. Finance, yeah.
It's big, yeah. I think the biggest thing as the business grows that you realize that it's very hard to manage is cash flow.
Yeah.
It's because also you want to grow, but the more you grow, the more there is a demand in terms of how you handle your cash flow. So these are the things that I'm learning as I go.
Yeah.
And I'm spending a lot of time now doing the things that I initially didn't plan on doing.
That you parked.
So yeah. But for me, it was just making the products easy part, and then running the business from other business functions.
Yeah.
It's because also my brain is not wired that way. It takes a lot of learning and studying to be able to sort of figure those things out.
Okay. And then when it comes to managing of people, how would you describe your managing style?
I think for me, I've always been a person that is a bit more, what quote unquote, chilled. I think that if people understand what they need to do, and they do what is required of them, there's no need to be putting all of these policies in place that will make people feel as if though now they are compelled to report to the slave master and kind of. So I'm very much relaxed in that way, but I also expect a lot in terms of quality of work. Yeah. So even if you work from home 7 days a week, it doesn't matter as long as you're giving great quality of work. I think for me that's important. Yeah. So I'm not focusing on quantity in terms of time. I like quality work.
Quality work. So you're not a micromanager.
Also love to hear it. Like that.
Love to hear it. Okay. So obviously, the economy is what it is. Difficult. There's been other things that have been causing us bottlenecks that have affected the sector as well. Inflation, pandemic, unrest, all the things. The list is endless, really, it sounds like. What are some of the areas that you found the most tricky, the periods that you found most tricky, and then how are you guys able to come on the other side of that?
We've had a few tricky areas in growing the business. I think the first one was we had to transition from lab to a little bit of a pilot plant. So that required a lot of capital. And also we then had to find a space, and Vets was... I speak a lot about Vets.
All Vets are like this, by the way. I just don't want... They're all like this.
No, but like for us, that was a pivotal moment because I was able, through one of my late professors, be able to get space there at Vets to do a pilot plant, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to start producing anything. So before that moment, I mean, I spent, because it was just me and one of the shareholders now, I was just literally doing for about a year and a half, just doing a lot of work at home, a lot of experiments, but also we had just
in this kitchen again.
It worked. Okay. So it was just after, just a little bit during COVID, and then just a little bit after COVID, just a few months after COVID as well, just doing a lot of work at home. And there's no money coming in, and it's very dark. It gets very dark at times, but that was one moment. I think the other moment was when we had received funding, but it took about 11 months to be disbursed.
Yeah.
So what that caused is that I had to find ways around, firstly, paying people. That was a dark period, I think.
Yeah.
But what we did was that, I like I said, I tried to be as lean as possible. Also make people understand that at the moment we're not really producing much or selling much, but knocking on different doors. I think having networks and a network of people that could help, especially from a financial standpoint, when days are dark, I think that truly helped. I think the last one was with my injury. I had a terrible injury last year, November.
Yeah.
I think that almost that almost sank the business, because I was in hospital for about 4 months or so.
Sure.
4 months and a week. First 3 months I was not working. First week and a half I was in a ventilator. So it was a tough period. But I think I'm grateful for the team that I have. The guys, from November last year to June this year.
Yeah.
The guys really put in the work to make sure the company stays afloat.
Yeah.
So that I think was the darkest period. But I have a great team, so I managed to get out of that. Yeah.
So I was about to say that it speaks to the kind of team that you've put together.
Yeah.
So your company was able to sustain you even when you were not physically there.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things I'm truly grateful for. I think without the team that I have now, it would have been difficult to carry on moving the company. So I'm actually now working on building the team a bit bigger so that it doesn't rely on me as much. Because being a key man in a company like this, it's stressful, because now you have to be extra cautious with what you do, and you can't do this and that, and also you're always living in this sort of fear that if you are not there, things are not going to work. So now I'm just working on building the team and strengthening that so that the company runs without me, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you were to, on your entrepreneurial journey so far, if you are speaking to somebody who's looking to get started, but they are anxious, they like their salary, it's nice, it's consistent,
it's beautiful,
it's safe, but they've got great ideas, right? They're looking to start something. Give us the lessons that you think they would benefit from knowing before they make the jump, and whether or not when they should make the jump as well. They mustn't just jump. I've heard that the people are jumping and then they are paying themselves with money from the business.
Yeah. And that's it. It's also, I think, with being in corporate, I think the caveat is that you've had the taste of a salary. And I think for most people, that's the hardest thing, because if you are leaving that level of comfort for being in periods where there's uncertainty almost every single day, that could be a difficult hurdle to get over. But I think if you want to, the first thing you need to do is have enough savings. I think if you have enough savings, test out the idea. Even if it means you're doing it once every Saturday, starting small, get a few customers, put together a little business plan. I don't really like business plans much, but have an idea of what the business will look like while you're still working. Get a few customers.
Yeah.
I think once you're at that point where you've seen that there's a product market fit and that you could be able to sort of have the business sustain you, especially if you can get sales that are maybe 2-3x your salary, that could be able to sustain you. At least start there, but don't start without having proven the concept. I think some people do it. It's a huge risk, though.
Yeah.
Especially if there are other factors. I mean, for people that have kids, a wife or a husband, the dynamics are a bit different, because it's much harder than to take that sort of leap of faith. So then you have to be, much more prepared to get into the entrepreneurship space. But I know all entrepreneurs that come here and say, oh, it's difficult, it's this and that. But if you found something that you're truly passionate about, and you see it making you a good enough income to be able to leave your job, do it.
Yeah. You just gave me my heart. Just keep a bit there. Moti, husband, please test out. Do not be an entrepreneur. Well, but households, we need households that are together and stable. Can you imagine? Okay. Talk us through where we can get hold of your products.
So at the moment, it's through our website. So the Orfil products.
Yes.
We have an Orfil website. You can get the products, but also Take a Lot, Macro. We've also on Faithful to Nature for the Green Soldiers and the Green Brigade. So we're actually mostly on those platforms in terms of online, and we're looking at, like I said, one big retailer to get into. We'll announce that once the time is right.
Stay tuned.
The LignOrganic products we sell a lot in terms of B2B, because these are oftentimes platform chemicals. So these you can go to our website, send us an email if you need lignin or cellulose, and we can take it from there.
Okay. And then what's next for LignOrganic? Near term, long term?
Near term, we are working on a thing with one of the biggest paper producers in South Africa. We are working on validating our process for them on their scale. I think if we can, once we achieve that, I think we would have unlocked so many doors for us. So that's sort of our immediate attention as a company as a whole.
Yeah.
But for Orfil, increasing the product range, very much important. Like I said, we're looking at sunscreen for darker toned skin. Emphasis on that. And then obviously getting into more e-commerce spaces so that we can sell the product. Longer term, medium term actually, is building a biorefinery, world first, like I said, that can do the thing I talked about, which is total biomass valorization. Because I think also if we can do that and put South Africa on a global stage, I think most people do not really understand how South Africa is in terms of science, has done so much. I mean, you talk about the heart transplant by Chris Bernard, the lithium ion battery. So I want to be able to also put the company on that sort of level in terms of the global stage.
And innovation,
Yeah. But longer term, we're looking at listing in the New York Stock Exchange. That's sort of the big, the moonshot goal.
Yeah. Amazing stuff. Tshepo, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, sustainability at its best. LignOrganic. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.